What is it about bosses in video games that are so captivating? Something is gratifying about taking out a larger-than-life enemy. Some bosses are good, others not so much. Little Nightmares in particular has some amazing central enemies in the horror genre. So today, I wanted to do a short ranking of some of my favorite bosses in the Little Nightmares franchise. This video will focus on the main bosses in the first two games. If you enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comment section and I can do another tier list on Very Little Nightmares and the DLCs. I have other theory videos and Little Nightmares content. If you wanted to watch any of these videos, links are in the description down below. Everything I say in terms of rankings is my opinion. My thoughts are based on my very first playthrough in each area. In honor of the tier list gods, I have to use Tier Maker. My criteria for rankings are going to be based on the surrounding area, the overall atmosphere, and the boss itself. I'm Very Berry. If you enjoyed this content, like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. It really helps with the growth of this channel, and I'd really appreciate it. Let's start with the Janitor, who resides in the depth. We don't get a good look at him at first, but in a more well-lit area, we can see he hides his face behind a mask. Not only this, but it appears as though he uses sound to hunt his prey. The Janitor's surrounding area is creepy, rooms with toys, darkness all around. We stand no chance against his tremendous reach. The constant sounds of the inner workings of the maw. He rates out pretty high in terms of atmosphere. Not to mention his area is very lore extensive. We get to learn more about human storage and surveillance in the maw. For me, his design wasn't super scary, but well thought out. Also, I have to give props to the creators for designing the maps around the bosses. The library area is a perfect example, because we get a false sense of security being above the Janitor. He seems like more of a pacifist compared to some of the other enemies, so I think he should get a slight boost for that. Altogether, I think the Janitor belongs in high B tier, a great introductory enemy to the game. Next are the Twin Chefs. This master chef duo horrified me on my first playthrough. The kitchen is the perfect environment for horror. Knives and brutality masked under the guise of cooking. The ambient noise of pots and pans, dishes being washed. Chef Ramsay complaining non-stop.
That's raw!
Structure is everything in the kitchen. Tight corners, narrow pathways, and a daunting trip across the rafters. Not to mention a constantly patrolling menace. Things get even tenser when the second chef comes in. They also appear to wear masks. Not to mention they are fast and mean. And the sounds they make are some of the scariest in the franchise, to me at least. I enjoy the sequences when you sneak under the kitchen floors. It gives you a sense that the enemies are larger than life. Not to mention that all the meat in the kitchen is human, which gives us the player an uneasy feeling. Plus, who doesn't love being put into a fish head? Chefs are A tier for sure, maybe low S, a dynamic duo to say the least. Now, I personally wouldn't consider the guests boss enemies, but it's on the list, so might as well. Even though the focus never stays on them too long, the guests are amazing enemies. Every scene with them adds a lot of tension to the narrative. The way they eat and consume ravenously makes them feel more like monsters than humans. When the guests begin to tidal wave, it was one of my favorite chasing sequences in the original. In terms of the environment, the main eating areas themselves aren't too scary to me, but the environment is very fun for platforming. I'd say the guests are C tier. Our next enemy on the list, his name seems to elude me. Maybe someone in the comments knows the answers. Oh yeah, the Hunter. What the Hunter lacks in character design, he makes up for in atmosphere. I personally don't find his character design that scary. He sort of reminds me of Sackboy mixed with Elmer Fudd. However, the house the Hunter resides in is unnerving. Mannequins with skins wrapped around them. Traps everywhere, and lots of brutal imagery. The surrounding areas of the Hunter's domain are also epic. The swamp and the open fields are breathtaking. I think for being a starter enemy, the Hunter is horrifying. We know by traveling to his house that he's no joke. Death lingers everywhere near the Hunter. For this enemy, I'm going to put him in B tier. Do we even need to talk about the Doctor? Holy Christ, this guy is horrifying. If Homer locked himself in a hospital and pumped himself full of drugs, we get the Doctor. Sunken eyes that don't move. A mouth that hangs open. Climbing from the roof like the Exorcist. The clinic oozes terror. We have constant imagery of human experimentation, amalgamations that attack unless a light is shown on them, and this feeling of uncertainty that's pretty unique to this area. Not to mention the bone-chilling sounds the Doctor makes when he spots you. The sound design in this area is immaculate, the clicking and clunking of mannequins. The ambient noise of water dripping. The doctor looks like he's tending to his patients, and he seems so genuine, which adds to the terror. I felt so scared in the hospital at some points that I thought the characters might die in the narrative. Hands down S tier, pooped my pants. While the doctor is definitely a hard boss to follow, the teacher pulls her weight and then some. The teacher is similar to the doctor, in that her design and the place in which she resides are incredible. One thing this enemy does well is subvert expectations. When we first see this monster, she looks very normal, but what that neck do? The scene in the vents made me jump a bit, which is pretty rare for me. Not to mention, schools are always scary. No matter what type of horror movie it is, you know if it takes place at a school, something creepy is about to go down. The same is true for the feelings in this area. This dilapidated school always puts me on edge. Some of the encounters with the teacher are fun too. The one where she stretches her neck up is both ridiculous and unnerving. But the part where she's experimenting on the table and you need to sneak past her is genuinely terrifying. I'd say the teacher deserves high A tier. Who's next? While not exactly how I remember them in high school, the bullies are underrated in my opinion. The school already has great atmosphere, so that category is taken care of, but the bullies excel in design. They look creepy and make erratic movements. Also, their empty heads could have a lot of potential meaning. They could be empty minds waiting to be filled, or children captured by propaganda. I enjoy how they look similar to the child in the chess room, potentially serving as a warning to the other children. Or possibly the bully's design was inspired by that kid. The bullies also elevate the teacher's character too. Their fear of the teacher is palpable, to the point where we experience fear by proxy. The scene where you sneak through a horde of them using a porcelain face is also very symbolic. To me, I feel like it represents Mono's ability to emulate similar behaviors to the porcelain children. This might be controversial, but I'm gonna put the porcelain children in S tier. Second to last on our list is the lady. She is the complete package in terms of story. The lady's quarter is dark and ominous. There is lore littered everywhere around this area. Broken mirrors, family photos on walls, and vases with eyes on them. The lady herself is very intimidating. I wouldn't say she's as scary as much as her presence demands respect. If she is 6, this elevates her character even further. Plus the game does a good job of building up hype for her character. We get a blood-chilling intro, and scenes of her in the background spectating the guests. She is obsessed with beauty, but refuses to look at herself. The image of her true self is enough to take down this treacherous foe. The lady is an obvious S for me, just for the lore and the atmosphere. Last but not least is the Thin Man. The Thin Man is my favorite character in the Little Nightmares universe. He is the complete package. He's not scary to me, similar to the lady, but he is the reason for all the atmosphere in the second game. He single-handedly created the Pale City and helped create the infrastructure in the other games. Plus him being Mono just adds icing to the cake. Little Nightmares pulled The Last of Us Part 2 and actually made us play the bad guy, and it's epic. Seeing the bond crush between Six and Mono is genuinely sad. The isolation radicalizes him so much that he becomes the Thin Man. The main reason why the lady and the Thin Man are S tier is that we get to experience them as fully realized characters. We know some information about all the other characters in the game, but for these two in particular, we are them. We live their horrifying lives and experience what they experience. Thanks for watching my tier list video. If you enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comments or any other rankings you'd like me to do in the future. Also, I'd love to hear about your favorite bosses or environments. Thanks, have a good one.